Right. It's the 17th of July 2024, and Verne Reeves, who was spent his whole of his life almost pretty well at Lower Barrington in his early days. He's going to talk about his early experiences um, from what he can remember. His parents were Arch and Alice Reeves. So thank you, Verne.
Yeah, well, we moved to, well, I can't remember much about it. I was only 6 months old. I think we moved to Lower Barrington, back into Allison's Road. I had 4 other brothers and a sister in front of me, and I think I can remember when I was about 5. I can remember Brian reckon he was 6. We had a day off school, and we was over at the barn. Vern had a box of matches, didn't he? And what happened? Vern burnt the barn down.
Oh no!
And so poor old mum, Brian had to go up and get Dad to come down, and Brian drove the horses back. Anyway, a heap of them turned up to put it out, but it was gone. And poor old Dad was going to kill me. Yeah, that was about 5, I think. But after I went to school I think I started school when I was about 7. So we used to walk a couple of 3 kilometres every morning, every night, up to catch the bus on the Roland Highway. And I can remember, I suppose when we was about 8 or 10, we would have been going to ferreting, chasing rabbits and all that sort of thing. Always a mob of us go ferreting, catching rabbits. Mum would go to town probably once a fortnight. She would take skins in and whatnot into Wilcock and Moffat. And then a lady asked her, what do the boys do with the rabbits, like the carcasses? Anyway, Mum said, I think they throw them away. Anyway, from then on, it was 2 bob for every carcass you could get, which was quite good.
Yeah.
I think we had the run of Lower Barrington. There wasn't many farms we didn't go on between Brinkman's, Rockcliffe, Smiths, Allison's. I remember old Gordon Allison used to give us 10 cents for every doe rabbit we caught, and which was quite interesting. Yeah, so we knocked around with Tony Vine, and we done a lot of spotlighting and that of the night. So I'd hate to think how many kilometres we walked and everything else. But I went to school till I was 16 and a half, I think it was. But before that I had 4 months at Barry Wiley's at Barrington, milking cows and going to school at the same time.
And, was the school in Lower Barrington at the time?
I was still living in Lower Barrington.
Was the school there?
No, the school closed in 1937. That was 10 years before I was born. I was born in 47.
Yeah.
So, one of my older sisters would have went there. So, yeah.
So you went to school in Sheffield?
Yeah, Sheffield, yeah. Yeah, out to the area school.
Mm.
We used to catch the bus, which Gordon Rogers used to drive.
Yes.
The old Greyhound bus she was. She had seats in every door in every seat. And used to, as I said, our bus stop, at one stage there used to be 24, 25 kids get on at the bus. And but I remember when the road, before they sealed the road, I think I was about 8. It was all rough road all the way through. Mum and Dad never had a car, so we always depend on probably the Allisons or the Brinkmans.
Yeah.
And we would go with them to probably down to the Bluff or into town, that sort of thing. But the baker used to come round, so we used to pick the bread up at Allison's every couple of days.
Right.
We'd probably pick a paper up from there as well. No, Dad just liked to read his paper. But we had no power. We had no power until I was about 13, I think. No power and no car.
Right.
And Dad dug all the holes down the road and put and him and McMurphy, I think all the poles come back in Dad's. They fell them and barked them and brought them back, and they put all the poles in down Allison's Road, and then the hydro put the power on. Well, where we lived was only a little 4-room shack virtually. And yeah, interesting, because I think the first electrical thing we got was a fridge.
Right.
So you could put stuff in the fridge, you know. So, but Mum and Dad, Mum used to milk, I don't know, about 8 to 10 cows by hand.
By hand.
By hand. When the power come on, they bought a 2-cup milking machine, so they could milk a couple of cows at a time. But they used to still separate those days, and Dad always kept 5 or 6 sow pigs. And they would sell all the babies off when they was about 8 or 10 weeks old. But Dad would put a few potatoes in every year. I remember the year he put them in, and they were a pound a tonne.
Right.
It was the best ever been, yeah. So it was quite interesting, yeah.
This is why you're in Allison's Road.
That's why I was when I was in Allison Road, yeah.
And who were your brothers and sisters?
Next brother above me was Neil, and then Brian, then Doreen, and then Eric. And I had a younger sister come along when I was 5, I think, 5. That was Margaret, yeah. But that's when the doctors told Mum that if they didn't put the power on, that, you know, we'd all freeze to death.
Right.
But we had an old Peter's oven, and that was all they ever cooked on. But when they did do an extension to the house and put a combustion stove in and all that, and made a big dining room, kitchen on sort of the back of the house. So we stayed there till I was about 18, I think, when Dad and Mum decided that, well, Jamie Radcliffe come on the scene. He bought Sykes, was probably 10 years before that, and he wanted to buy Dad, so he bought Dad's. But then we moved back down to the top of the Don Hill. Dad had a 9-acre block with a big old 4 or 5 bedroom shack on it.
Yeah. So
we moved back down there and lived in that until they built a new house.
Right.
So, yeah, but when we was in Allison's Road, I could remember Mum they bought an FJ Holden ute.
Right.
And because these days you're not allowed to sit in the back of the ute, we used to sit in the back of the ute with a canopy on it. And,
that's right. Or in the dinky seat of
well, that's where we had no option. They only had 3 in the front, so yeah, the other half of us had to fit in the back. So yeah. So yeah, well, it was in Allison's Road. Yeah, we got the power on, and then the Radcliffe wanted the telephone, so we stood up poles, and they got the phone on. So we had the phone on. That was just a manual exchange back to the shop. So every time you wanted something, Land Sheriff would know.
Or Reen.
or Reen, but mainly Lands. Yeah.
So what year was this when you got the phone on?
It would have been 50. Oh, geez, now you asked me something I can't remember. I was about 13, so it would have been. I can't remember.
In the 50s.
It'd be in the early 70s, wouldn't it? Yeah.
50s.
50s, yeah. Yeah. The power come on, then we got the phone on, and we stayed there for another. Yeah, well, Dad was 66, I think. I must have been about 18 or 19 when we moved from there back down to the top of the Don Hill.
So what was your first job?
Well, I used to go working around the district. You'd go picking up stones. You do a lot of that, cutting ferns, cutting blackberries. I think I cut all Hog Creek out. Now when I go back and look at it, and I think, gee, did I clean all that? And it's tall as I am now, it's just all grown over. But I'd go down to Pages. I can remember when I was about 14 or 15, I used to go down to help Harry dig potatoes with a fork, not with a potato harvester or a spud digger or anything else. It used to be the fork. You dig the potatoes and load them on the truck. Jeff or Noel Allison would turn up to pick them up and all that sort of thing, and they would go back into Devonport. Yeah, so that was one of the, well, as I said, I went up to Barry Wallace at Top Barrington when I was going to school, so I had done a bit of time up there. But then Neil and I went and had about 4 or 5 months on the mainland travelling around. And we decided we'd come back home. He went to Queenstown and I went down to Bruins at Streighton and went working.
Right.
In the orchard, and I had 13, 14 years there.
Oh. What did you do on the mainland? Were you working?
No, we had enough money to survive, so we just drove around and
looked around.
Looked at places, and we had a cousin in Queensland. We spent a bit of time up there with them and whatnot, and helped them they had a market garden, so we spent a bit of time with them. But then, yes, as I said, when I went down, Jamie Ratcliffe, it was his father-in-law, and he said, "You're not interested in a job, are you?" And I said, "Oh, well, I suppose I am." So that's how I ended up down in Bruins.
Right, Bruins Orchard.
Bruins Orchard, yeah. So I learned to prune and graft and thin and pick and all that sort of stuff. So
that's when you learnt all your horticultural skills?
All the horticultural experiences, yes, that's right, after 13 years of it.
Yeah.
And then, he sold, Castleknock out, the orchard and 300 odd acres. Clayton Stewart bought it. Yeah. And he wanted someone to run it, so I said, well, I'll leave Jock. So I went to work for Clayton. So I had 13 years with the Clayton, so I probably put 26 years on the same property.
That was on Tarleton Road?
Tarleton Road, through Tarleton Road,
Next to Woolies?
No, next door. Castleknock.
Yeah, that's right, next door to Woolies.
Next door to Woolies, yeah. Yeah, well, when Di and I got married, we lived in the house at Castleknock.
Oh, did you?
For, I don't know, about 4 years. So we got to know the Woolies pretty well. They virtually only just come there, and it was only the two brothers and the two wives, and they wanted a couple of help make boxes and pack apples. So Di and I used to go there after tea. Yeah. For 3 hours every night. So
making boxes.
Making boxes and Di and go packing the apples. Yeah. So then we got a house there, and then we bought it to a 5 acre block at Aberdeen.
That's right.
And then we turned around and we built a 3-bedroom house on that.
Yeah.
And in the process, we bought another 8 acres behind it.
Right.
And we stayed there for, I think, 5 or 6 years.
And you had your girls when you were...
Yeah, the girls were there. Jackie was 3 and Sarah was about 8, 9 months old, I think. And Cocker's property came on the market at Lower Barrington and on they called it Paluna Road then. And we decided we'd call him one Sunday afternoon to have a look. Anyway, the house suited Diane because it was an old house that wanted a lot doing to it inside. So she said, "Oh yeah, we'll have it." Right. So okay, so we sold a new house to go to a house 90 years old.
Right. Yeah. Then you had work to do on it.
Work to do on that, and as well as work to do on the farm. Well, I milked cows every morning and used to go to work every day, work an 8-hour day as well. Yeah. And Diane would milk overnight. She'd always feed the calves in the morning. And she'd often, Sarah would only been probably 1 or 2, a bit over 1. Yeah. There was a cot in the dairy, and that's where Diane would put her in there, and she'd stay there until the milk machine stopped. As the milk machine stopped, she'd stand up and she'd want to get out.
That's what kids had to do when their parents were dairy farmers.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah? Yes,
they were busy milking. Yeah. So you were still working at Castleknock at that time? Yeah,
I was, yeah. So I used to get up most mornings about 4:30 and be left by about 10 to 7. And I'd milk the 60-odd cows and that. So, and we done a little bit of cropping, but until I ended up, when I left Clayton, we'd paid for the farm, so I decided I was going to do something for myself. So, but by the time I got knocked off, there was people knocking on the door wanting this doing, something else doing, and then John Day turned up and said, "Oh, you don't want a job driving the bus, do you?" I said, "What, driving a bus?" He said, "Well, they're going to put a bus on to pick the Wilmot kids up." So I said, "Oh, all right." So my 2 girls didn't have to walk or Diane didn't have to take them out to the end of the road every day then. So they hopped on the bus and we went out to the river and picked up 18 Wilmot kids.
Right. And that's back to Sheffield?
Yeah, and then take them back to Sheffield. Yeah.
So how long did you do that for?
Until I ended up in a wheelchair. 3 years, I think. Yeah.
Yes.
And then so... Yeah, they were tough old times, I'll tell you, but especially I remember interest rates went to 22.5%.
That's right, yes.
And I remember telling John Jeffries this one day at sale. I said, oh, something came up about interest rate. And I said, John, you know how much interest rates are now? They're over 22%. No, they're not, he said. And he must have been telling some guy, and this guy came over to me and he said, so they've gone to 22%? And I said, yep. He said, I don't believe you. So anyway, when I went home that night, I found the bank statement. I took it around to John. I said, give that to your mate and let him have a look at it. John said, well, I wouldn't have believed it if I hadn't seen it with my own eyes.
Yeah,
So,
it was, that's right. And you'd paid your house off
and
at that time.
Yes, we'd finished paying off the
Yeah.
farm and everything else by then.
You weren't owing any money.
No, which was good.
That was good, yeah, so you could get ahead of it.
So we were there for, I think, 30 odd years. So that sort of, yeah. And before that, I ended up in a wheelchair. We had Peter Gillum fixed one tractor and made it so I could drive it with hand clutches, hand brakes, and a little winch to get on and off. That was all right. And I bought another one off the Jouts when they sold out, and the son-in-law converted that over for me, and so we had two tractors, so I didn't have to keep changing implements, so I could feed out.
So that was an amazing thing out of a tragic event.
Yep.
Through no fault of your own.
No, that's right.
Then you were able to get on with your life and
still stay there.
Yeah, and still stay there. And people helped modifying your tractor and implements and everything. So you could farm as a paraplegic. So that must have been really, really challenging.
Yeah, it was, because you couldn't check the fuel. You could check the oil before you got on the tractor, but you couldn't check the fuel because you couldn't get up high enough. No. I think only once I ever run out of fuel.
Right. Yeah.
But by getting the tractor on and off with a hand winch, it made it better because I could get on and off anywhere I liked. But they said, oh, we'll get you an electric one to lift you up and down. I said, yeah, that's all right, but you can't have that in the middle of a paddock.
No, that's right. Yes.
So, yeah.
So frustrating, but what kept you going? What
sort of? Oh, well, just that's what I wanted to do. I didn't want
drive. You're in a drive.
Your
faith as well. You know, just.
We sold all the dairy cows. Yeah, I think that was about for 3 years, and then we had 30 or 40 heifers, I think, the car. Jackie said, oh, she didn't want to go to Don College, so she stayed home and done a farm apprenticeship. So,
that's good.
After 5 years, she became a fully qualified farmer. She, worked for us and also work for the Smith brothers at Barrington, Lower Barrington, and over. Max Harris was over on the other bank. So she done all that, because then girls grow up and they chase boys, or the boys chase the girls, or whatever happens.
Their interests change.
Yes, that's right. So she went off working for the Field Fresh on the carrots, the carrot officer.
Jackie did. And Sarah at that stage?
Sarah was going to nanny school in Launceston.
Right.
So she had 2 or 3 years up there and became a fully qualified nanny. So.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Like a childcare worker.
Yeah, virtually. Yeah.
Right. Yes.
Well then, Diane had ended up with cancer, and she got over it, and then they reckon it reappear. So we put the place on the market. And I think the second person that we were told said they'd buy it, so that was the end of that. So we moved from there down here to Leith. So.
Right. Yeah, and that must have been really hard to give up.
To leave Lower Barrington more than anything, probably. Right. So we do go back. I go back to church, and
you do, yes.
Yes, every Sunday, and then we go back to the hall committee as well. So
Well, that's where you feel you belong. That's
that's the community. Yeah,
and that's very important.
It is.
To have a sense of belonging.
Yep, that's for sure. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, well, as was growing up, I mean, when we moved down Allison's Road, I think Smiths moved across the road into their place. Brinkman's had moved from Collinsvale up to there. Viney's had moved from Rosebery to there. Allison's, yeah, that just changed hands. I think it went from Bond to Gordon. Allison stayed in the family farm. Yeah, and then sort of Rockcliffe's had more ground, and Page's stayed only just bought, probably part of Tom Reeves's. So, yeah, sort of that all rounders, they sort of just moved there as we moved there. So everyone become everyone's neighbour, and, if you wanted something doing, it was, yeah.
And Gordon Rogers?
Yeah, I remember in Gordon Rogers, he used to do a lot of mechanical work. At the schoolhouse when they lived in the schoolhouse. Right. And then they turned around and they built the house down on the old tennis court. Right. That was where the tennis court was in Lower Barrington, where the garage is.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Right. So they built the house and then they built the garage.
Yeah.
Then, it was good, nice to have a mechanic. You could just pop down and get a bit of welding done and, ring up for an oil change or tractor. Well, we never had no trouble because all the time I lived and farmed with Dad, and Dad never ever drove a tractor. He always had 2 horses.
Right, yes, of course.
And when they sold the farm, he took the 2 horses with him. And on the way through, he harrowed all Jack Reeves's creeks. He'd had taken all the banks off. Yeah. I think Dad had about a fortnight there with the horses. Yeah. And he took them down to the top of the Don Hill, and they were, I think someone from Ulverston bought them. Right. So, yeah.
And bullocks weren't used in those days? It was mainly horses?
No, it was mainly horses, yeah. Pages used the horses, and then they bought a tractor. Smiths and them, Brinkmans they had one horse they used to do a bit of work with, but they had tractors. Allison's, old Gordon Allison, he had 2 horses. He never ever drove a tractor. I think when Dennis took the farm on, he bought a tractor. But so they're sort of just in the tractor era when the tractors come in. Viney's bought Bill Viney had 2 beautiful horses, and they went. Pages bought them up on top of the hill, old George Page. Yeah. And Bill Viney bought a little 28 Fergie diesel tractor. So yeah.
And Jack Reeves with his horses?
Yeah, Jack had, he went into that. That was a bit later in life, right. He bought
quarter horses.
Bought a quarter horse for $22,000, and we said, God, he got more money than then. $22,000 a lot of money now.
Oh, yes, of course it is.
It was a lot of money then, but he bought a lot of mares, and he had a lot of foals. But he always said, if I live long enough, I'll buy a pair of draft horses. Unfortunately, he didn't.
No.
Yeah.
Didn't live that long,
Yeah. Yeah, so a few things, yes. We used to play badminton at Lower Barrington every Thursday night. We go there and play badminton. There'd always be probably up to 20, 25, 30 kids. Kids were always all driving, so there'd be probably all us young blokes only be 17, they all got cars and make a lot of noise and everything else. Torment all the girls, so yeah.
So the Lower Barrington Hall, what are your first memories of that? So the hall was there then, or was it a church?
No, the church was there first. Church was there, long before the Baptist church was ever there. And they built the hall onto it.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
And I think the first I can remember it, I reckon I was probably about 8. We went down there to a Christmas tree. Yeah. Yeah, and I think they've had a Christmas tree ever since. Yeah. But they used to play, we used to play badminton. Then we'd have odd nights for different people. If someone wasn't very well or something was going on, they'd
raise some money.
Have a beetle night or, a casserole night or something like that. You'd fork it through, put a few bob in, and you go from there.
Help them. That's right.
So it hasn't had a lot done to it. It's been painted a few times. I've painted the outside and most of it. So
Yes, that's right.
So it's quite interesting, but
interesting to see it now with its
with the new supper room. Yes,
room. That's right.
So wants a new roof on it now, which we'll get there.
Yeah, exactly. That's there. Right. So we need it to still be there for future generations.
Well, we hope so. Yeah.
We need to celebrate the past. Yeah, we really do need to celebrate the past. So that's what we're trying to do.
Which is good. That's what I said to Bromman about the railway. But I thought I tried to find it in that book there, but the railway, I'm sure it was 1925 when it finished.
Yes, that's
According to
right.
Mum's regulations. Well, I said, well, it'd be lovely to next year just celebrate the 100 years that it ceased. You know,
That's
it
next
didn't
year.
go that long, but it's still a part of our history.
Yeah, of course it is. The cuttings were there.
Yeah, all the formations are still there. No one's a couple of places have probably been ploughed in, but most of them are still there.
Yes.
You know, like the two cuttings down in Dale Grays where the railway line went through, or where the tram line went through.
Mm.
And then they turned around and the railway was too close to the creek, so it's got a big wall of dirt between that and the two cuttings.
Oh, right.
Which is quite interesting. No one would ever know that unless you went and had a look.
Yes.
Which would be quite interesting, yeah. So, yeah. Yeah, and the old station yard. I mean, I know we've got to put something up there to say it was a station yard.
That's right. Yes, it has to.
Because it has to be said, because there's quite a few in the garden club that you say something about the Lower Barrington station and they say, we didn't know ever had a railway station. How did it ever get there?
Yeah. So where was the station?
On the end of Allison's Road.
Right on Allison's Road, Sheffield Road.
Yeah.
Intersection.
In there, yeah.
Right.
And the house
there's a bit of a cutting there now, like a bank, I think.
No, there is a cutting back up into where they get water out of a hole there. Yeah, that's all. Right. The railway house is still there.
In behind.
Just right on the edge of the road.
Oh, the one on the edge of the road.
On the highway or whatever they call it.
The railway house.
Yeah, that's the railway house.
Right.
Yeah. So that's sort of all been there when we were kids. Yeah, there's part of railway lines and part of sleepers and all that's still there.
They were still there then.
Still there when we was going to school, yeah.
Right.
I think the Moores would have owned it then. They lived in the railway house. I don't think they ever owned it. I think they only lived in it. They paid rent to it, I think.
Right. So the railway line then, if it finished at Allison's Road, did it go behind the shop?
Yes, it did. It went on the other side of the creek of the shop.
Right.
Down past them through Amanda's yard, and there's a house being built on it just over on the bank. There's a couple of big abutments there of concrete where they come through. It's the same up on Allison's Road. There's a big two abutments of concrete there, where it was where the railway line came over the top of that.
Yeah. So in that cul-de-sac where those houses are, just
on the other side of the creek, on the other side of the creek.
So the railway line went behind that.
Yeah.
Right.
You come back round and up past and through a part of Dooley's Road, Dooley's yard. Yeah.
Right.
I think the only piece of the railway line you can't see is the piece that was on Gordon Allison's property that I think Jamie might have cleaned it all out. But on that photo, there's a photo in days of our youth of Gordon Allison there with a team of horses, 3 horses. I reckon I was about when they took that photo because I remember cutting potatoes there.
Right.
They would plough in 2 furrows and then they'd plough an extra one with 3 furrows to put the spuds in, yeah. And the railway lines used to come down round that way, down through to Dooley's, yeah.
Right. Yeah. And the Reeves name, that's synonymous with Lower Barrington. So your dad, Arch Reeves, so his connection with Lower Barrington then...
all his life. Yeah.
Was his parents were there?
Yeah, Tom Reeves was his father.
Tom Reeves was his father.
And John Reeves was his grandfather.
John
Reeves bought 2 blocks of 50-acre blocks in behind, down in where Hardwicks are now.
Oh, yes.
Down Cruskett Road. And, but Tom Reeves owned Pages, 50 acres, where the 2 houses are there at the Pages, in Pages Corner. The rest of the ground he cleared.
Right.
He'd clear it. He had 5 years to clear it. And when he cleared it, he would be able to run it for 2 years, I think they said, and he would grow fodder on it to feed cattle.
After 2 years. He was the world champion axeman?
He was the first world champion
axeman.
Yeah. And he also won quite a few running races. He would walk from there, from Lower Barrington to Latrobe.
Walk.
Carry an axe and then he would turn around, he'd have a chop, and then he'd do probably a 440 or
What that?
220 around the oval, and he would win every time.
Gosh.
Your dad won a few trophies, like quite a few running trophies.
Yeah.
So, but people sort of don't know if you go up where I suppose they call it the Lower Barrington Road and the Sheffield Main Road.
Yeah.
On the left-hand side of the road, if you're heading towards Sheffield, back over in there, that's where the Lower Barrington Oval was.
Oh, was it?
There was a cricket pitch
They
there.
played cricket.
When we went to school.
Yeah.
They had running carnivals, shopping carnivals, and everything else all in there. Yeah. That's a part of history that's sort of just about disappeared. Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
Because Lower Barrington had its own cricket team, football team.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was where they mainly were in there.
And that's where it was.
That's where it was in there.
Just in there.
Yeah, at Lower Barrington.
Yeah.
Well, in behind the schoolhouse, there used to be two other houses in there as well.
Was there?
And when we were kids, they were sort of half fallen down.
Yeah.
So we'd go that way home from Sunday school across the paddock.
Yes.
Because you just have a look in them, and
yeah.
like you did with everything else that everyone else was shed and all that. So
exploring inside these old houses.
We was only teenagers, so that's all what it was all about.
Yeah.
So so the Reeveses, there's still a Reeves left behind the hall. They're the last of them, but we were the last to farm in Lower Barrington.
Yes.
And Brian, they were the first people to own the schoolhouse.
That's right, they were. Yes, exactly. It's had many owners since.
No, lots. Yeah, lots and lots.
Maybe it's haunted.
Yes, it is. Yeah, they have. Yeah. So other than that, I can't tell you much more.
Okay, that's lovely. It's great memories indeed. Thank you, Verne, very, very much. I really appreciate that.